Since the first words were formed, humans have mused about the lure of the sea, so perhaps it is unsurprising that I was well and truly lured by the dark nautical theme of Tetix Games' Deep Regrets when it came to Kickstarter in 2024. Promising to be the most unsettling fishing board game ever created, the striking art style from designer and illustrator Judson Cohen gives the game immediate visual appeal. The combination of an exploration of the mysterious deep, the appeal of fishing itself, and a generous smattering of Lovecraftian horror is so perfect that I needed little more to take the plunge. But I'm sure we've all had plenty of deep regrets when it comes to impulse Kickstarter pledges over the years, so now I have the game in hand, I want to review the full delivered experience of this game and consider whether it was indeed a prize catch or whether I should have waited for a fairer fish. I'm going to start by going through the game objectives and how to play, but as always, if you are only interested in my review of the game, you can skip to the relevant section using the chapters or the timestamp above. Let's cast a line. Deep Regrets will pit you against up to 4 fellow players to prove yourself Angler of the Week, with the winner being the player that has the most points once all players have passed on the final day. The score will chiefly consist of the fish you hold in hand. The value of a given fish is shown in the gold circle in the top left of the fish card, but this value is not fixed. Instead, the card value of each fish you hold is modified by its type and your current madness value. At the start of the game, devoid of regret, you will occupy the top rung of the madness track, with each fair fish you own, identified by a blue border, worth 2 more than its card value, but each foul fish identified by a green border worth 2 less. However, as the game progresses, you may start to acquire regret cards, moving you down the madness track according to your total number of regret cards, until, if you sink to sufficient depths of regret, the fish values are completely switched. Your madness level will also affect how many dice you can hold in your fresh pool, dictating the number of actions you can take in a day. The value of fish can also be magnified significantly by mounting them on your board, allowing you to multiply the value of up to 3 fish by 2 or 3 according to their placement. But again, the score you derive from these fish will be affected by your final level on the madness track. You will additionally gain a point for every 2 fish bucks you have left, though this is likely to be a relatively modest contribution as no player can have more than 10 fish bucks at one time. Lastly, the player with the highest value of regret, i.e. the total of the numbers on their regret cards as opposed to the number of cards they hold, will be forced to discard their highest value mounted fish. Players must therefore choose their strategies carefully, managing their regret cards in such a way as to ensure fish are worth maximum value at the point they are sold or at the end of the game, whilst also aiming for an existence less regretful than the most miserable of their fellow fishermen. The game takes place on 2 distinct location boards that permit different actions to be taken. In the sea, you will spend dice to find and catch fish across 3 depths, represented by 3 rows on the board. Each has a different distribution of large and therefore more valuable fish, as well as a different likelihood of hooking a fair or foul fish. Meanwhile, at port you will sell fish in exchange for the currency to buy better equipment, improving your ability to snag more useful fish upon your return to the sea. Each day starts with the day track advancing, sometimes unlocking day-specific effects such as your can of worms refreshing or a cash bonus. The first player token will also rotate at this stage, and players already at sea will move their boat up a depth if they are not already at depth 1. Each player will then take all spent dice on their character board along with any fresh dice they wish and re-roll them, placing dice up to their limit on their fresh pool ready to be used. The player with the highest total value of dice will then throw a life preserver to a player of their choice, allowing them to reduce the difficulty of a single fish catch by 2, or the cost of visiting a single shop by 2 fish bucks at any point during the day. Each player will then choose whether they will spend the day at sea or at port, also equipping any 1 rod or 1 reel they own ready for use. Players that spent the previous day in port must spend the next day at sea. The players will take turns to complete a single action based on their location in the game. As you might imagine, the most common action available while at sea is to fish. To do so, you will select one of the piles of cards at your current depth or above, revealing the fish for all players to see. Although the fish are generally hidden prior to this point, players can get some idea of the likely size and therefore catch difficulty of the fish in question from the size of the shadow on the back of the card. Each fish will generally have their catch difficulty marked with a hook at top right. Some also bear this red anchor symbol, meaning that you will gain a regret card should you decide to sell them. They may likewise have abilities that trigger upon them being revealed, caught or eaten, so it is important to check this carefully each time a new fish is revealed. To catch the fish, simply play dice of equivalent value by moving them from the fresh area of your board to spent. Any half dice are simply lost. If you cannot afford to catch the fish or do not wish to do so, you will instead sacrifice a dice of any value from your fresh pool and take a dink. For this reason, you cannot initiate a fish action without at least one die available in your fresh pool. While not worth points like fish, a dink may provide a small benefit in future turns. Once per game, players may also flip their lifeboat card to take the abandoned ship action, immediately gaining 10 regret points, but with the advantage of returning to port immediately, taking all further actions that day at port rather than waiting for the following day. This is useful because returning to port gives you the opportunity to obtain new equipment, as well as prepare for the following day at sea. Upon arriving, players at port will get to re-roll any dice they wish, returning them to the fresh pool. They will also reset their can of worms if it has been used, and can discard a regret card if they have one. They will now be able to take the various port actions. They may take an action to mount up to 3 fish from their hand to empty slots on their board, magnifying the value of these fish at the endgame. Less important fish can be sold in exchange for fish bucks equivalent to their points value, bearing in mind that this value will be modified by the player's current placement on the madness track. A player in port can also visit each of the 4 shops once during a given day, obtaining new rods, reels, supplies and dice. Purchased tackle dice and supplies are generally on once and gone effect, with the dice returning to the supply instead of moving to the spent pool like your starting dice, whilst rods and reels will generally provide an ongoing ability so long as they are equipped at the start of the day. Regardless, these purchases will cost a number of fish bucks, and spending more fish bucks generally increases your choice of cards. For example, you might spend 5 fish bucks to draw 5 reels and keep 2, rather than spending 1 fish buck and being stuck with the top card of the reel deck. There are also a number of steps you might choose to take during your turn that do not count as your single action. Eating fish, using the life preserver, using dinks, items, rods and reels do not count as actions, but may have other consequences according to the cards. You can also use your can of worms to peek at a fish before trying to catch it, returning it to the top or the bottom of its stack as you see fit. You can also spend a die of any value whilst at sea to move your boat 1 depth lower than it is currently. Each player takes 1 action each turn, but as long as players continue to act, there is no limit to the number of actions that can be taken in a day, providing a given player has the dice or fish bucks to undertake said actions. When a player wishes to stop taking actions or is unable to take further actions, they will declare they pass, and may either draw a dink card or shed a regret card at that moment, and at each time their turn is subsequently skipped that day. Once all but 1 player has passed, the remaining player may take 2 more turns, with the day ending immediately after their final turn. The game ends once all players have passed on the final day of the week, or immediately if the sea itself is ever empty. Whenever we provide a full explanation of gameplay, I'm conscious that there's a danger of providing an overcomplicated sense of the real gameplay. In truth, Deep Regrets hinges on a fairly contained set of choices, when to be in port versus at sea, and where to cast your line. The game doesn't leave players floundering for information to support such decisions either, providing reference cards that fully detail the distribution of different fish catch values and the likelihood of fair versus foul fish. Most groups will get the hang of this balance quite quickly, and it's an easy teach, the 16+ age rating applied to the box apparently relating to the mature nature of certain parts of the artwork and flavour text rather than being a reflection of game complexity. It's impossible not to admire the artistry that has gone into Deep Regrets. A clear labour of love, every corner of the game packs visual punch. It's not just the unique fish and card items, the inside of the box includes a full colour representation of your fisherman friend that wouldn't look out of place on any gamer's wall. Each character board has a second side which serves no purpose other than to allow players to choose between the fair and foul protagonist of their dreams. Hell, the Kickstarter edition of the game is even wrapped in thematic aged newspaper, like a classic serving of fish and chips, complete with articles about weird captures from the deep, that I was genuinely reluctant to destroy to get to the game. This is perhaps the first nibble of Tetex Games' laudable commitment to a low plastic board game, shedding traditional shrink wrap for paper and sealing components in biodegradable baggies. You will find no so-called acrylic component upgrades here, the wooden dice and meeples resplendent, to the point you will ask yourself why so many other companies don't do this. It doesn't feel like a compromise. From the double layer madness track to the metal coin and tactile cloth bag, everything feels like no expense has been spared. But the attention to detail goes beyond the aesthetic. With each card turned, the story is embellished. Each fish carries with it a thematic and often hilarious line of flavour text.
Lamprey, small and fair. They haven't a jaw, but they make up for it with a maddening amount of teeth. Sea monkey, middling and foul. We are misled to believe they are harmless, but they are nae happy that we imprison their young.
And each regret is specifically described, with the rulebook encouraging players to account for their regrets in narrative form at the end of the game.
Nagging regrets. Bought snake oil.
Heavy regret. Forgot where I buried the body.
The rulebook devotes plenty of space to set the intended tone of the game, with the atmospheric introduction and links to historic figure Edmund Halley designed to immerse players in a mysterious eldritch world where every regret has consequence and madness must be carefully managed. It was a surprise to me, given this context, that regret as a mechanism doesn't seem to achieve this weight. In the games I have played, the extra value madness applies to foul fish, which are more numerous at higher depths and therefore often worth more points, combined with the ability to have more fresh dice and obtain that sweet store discount, is such that losing a single mounted fish, even quite a valuable one, can feel like an insufficient disadvantage. This makes the lack of interplayer actions a much bigger issue. There are fish cards that will reduce or increase the regret of your fellow players, but not significantly enough to challenge their overall strategy. If one of your group decides to go all in on regret, there isn't a great deal you can do to mess with the economy of that decision. Regret is simply too easy for players to shed or gain according to their preferred strategy. All you can do is try and deny your opponents the fish they most want, but at smaller player counts there is also a very good chance that these will also be fish that you don't want. Even this need not be Deep Regret's ultimate downfall. After all, I've played lots of games where player interaction feels perfunctory. But in such games the fun is usually derived from optimising your own score generating machine through interesting decisions and strategy. In Deep Regrets, most of the decisions you control feel like foregone conclusions. You are bound to take as many actions as possible, fish as many fish as possible. You might choose to buy some equipment, but many of the rods and reels are objectively better or worse than each other, rather than representing genuine opportunities for different gameplay. It's not that you have no choices, it's that your choices don't introduce any real dilemmas for you as a player. Perhaps the single player variant, which involves you literally cataloguing all the fish available in the game across multiple playthroughs, gives a sense of the game's true intent. This is a fishing game after all. Maybe the appearance of a fish you haven't caught before, the enjoyment of the art and the flavour text, is the game, and the point's merely a secondary and arbitrary measure of who is the better angler. If so, I'm sure this game will find its audience, but I don't feel it's quite in the spirit of the theme that was promised. I don't regret backing Deep Regrets, but the truth is I wanted to love it. From a production standpoint, it's a tour de force. Ethically, artistically, thematically, everything I want from a board game. For that reason alone, I'm sure I'll play it again, but its gameplay is such that I'm doubtful it will ever overtake other favourites in my collection. Perhaps it's just my personal taste, but I wanted a game that I could really sink my teeth into, something that would only improve over repeat playthroughs. Instead, I fear I have caught a game that, while undoubtedly beautiful, like so many mounted trophies, will simply gather dust, rather than having enough life to keep me venturing into its depth long term. Please do click the like button if this review was helpful to you, it really helps our small channel grow. If you've already played the game yourself, please do let us know in the comments whether you've had a similar experience or whether you disagree with my conclusions. Will you be backing the upcoming expansion on Kickstarter, or has this game become one of your deep regrets? If you're new to the channel, please do stick around. We surely have something to suit every gamer by now, with an eclectic mix of tabletop games covered in reviews, playthroughs and more still to come. So why not explore some of our other videos or subscribe to ensure you don't miss our future content. The sea air has put me in the mood for a classic fish supper with extra eyeballs, so I'll bid you calm seas until we meet again and remind you to work hard, play better and take care out there.